Over to you, Danny, for some deep breathing.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. I'm really bad at multitasking. So let's take some deep breaths because I really need one at this moment just to focus. So take a deep breath in. Hold. Breathe out. Okay, I think it's just breathing is so important. Sometimes I just feel so rushed, and when I'm told to breathe, I just realize, oh yeah, I can do that. I forgot, and I think sometimes we all need that. So,
thanks, Danny. This GIF is from an article in the New York Times, and we've linked that, and that will be in the Tintook this week. So you can follow up and read 4 short practices that help with bringing you kind of out of the red zone and into the green zone. And this is one practice to help you emulate, which is the slow in and slow out, the timed breath. I think they call it coherent breath. So that's also will be part of the resources for today. We wanted to start off with a poll, and our magic poll person, Josh, is going to make that happen. So if you can answer the poll that comes up in front of you. There are four different things, and we'd like to know what would you like to know more about in our sessions. So the zones of regulation, the size of the problem, how to use routines to help change behavior, and also positive discipline, which is something we've briefly touched on. So Josh, I can't see the poll, but if the participants could give a thumbs up in the reaction mode or put something in the chat if you can see the poll.
They can. It's starting to populate right now. So we've had almost half of the participants. You can do multiple choices as well. If you'd like to know about all of them, then select all of them.
Thanks, Josh.
Right. So far, we've got 60% in favor of positive discipline. Routines and size of the problem are 33% each. And zones of the regulation, there's one person who'd like to learn more about that.
All right, Josh, maybe if you could take a screenshot so that Danny and I can have that info, that would be great. Thank you for that feedback, everybody. That gives us a little bit more information about where we'd like to go in these next couple of weeks. Today, we just want to talk about tools because this is something that we talk about with our students all the time, which is what tools do you have in your tool belts to help you with regulating? And so we work through our guidance classes, and the homeroom teachers work through every day, teaching and practicing tools that students can have at the ready, depending on what the situation calls for. And so we like to think about all the tools that we've put into our parenting tool belt. We've talked about the zones of regulation, being able to identify your emotional state and help your child to identify their emotional state. We know that being able to identify emotions is one of the first and biggest skills that children need and adults need for emotional, what we call emotional intelligence. It really helps with understanding other people's perspective and building empathy. So we've talked a little bit about and shared some strategies to use the zones of regulation with your children at home. We have briefly touched on the mood meter. This is another way of helping your children and yourself expand your emotional vocabulary. This comes from a book by Mark Brackett called Permission to Feel. And he really suggests that we, instead of saying, how are you? We ask people, how are you feeling? So that people know that it's okay to share the exact feeling that you're having, and that by pinpointing the way that you're feeling, you can help with your reaction to a situation and how others react to you. So that's something we can go into a little bit more. We also talked about the size of the problem and how supporting our children's understanding of their reactions and the size of different problems can help them when they are trying to problem solve. And again, with self-regulation. We've talked about routines and how routines and predictability can help everyone, and in particular our children, and even more so during distance learning when we're all together at home. And we started off earlier on with Danny sharing with us about how stress affects our brains and the brains of our children and how we pass that on. And so we talked about a trauma responsive approach. to our children and to their at times challenging behaviors. So the reason why we talk about it through a trauma lens, especially right now with COVID, is because so many people in the world are experiencing the trauma that has been inflicted because of a global pandemic. And so it's putting that lens over our parenting and adding that to our parenting toolkit. Today, we wanted to focus a little bit more on some of the strategies that we teach your children in our guidance lessons. And clearly my animation is not agreeing with me. So there's 3 here that we talk about and practice with children, which is for some situations, a way to regulate is to get energy into your body. And so that may be doing some jumping jacks. For other situations, a strategy or a tool is to talk to an adult. We know that reaching out and having a trusted adult in your life is really beneficial. That may be a parent. In addition, it may be a counselor or a teacher, it may be a teaching assistant or another family member. I don't have my fidget ball with me, but we also know for some students and grownups that having something in your hand to squeeze or fidget with can really help with attention and with calming down your amygdala, calming you down. We talk about getting out and going for a walk. And with the little kids, we've talked about during lockdown, how that might just be a walk in place. And so we often practice that as a tool. 3 deep breaths. We start all of our parenting sessions with that. Our children are also becoming really well versed in what it looks like to take deep breaths, not just shallow breaths up here, but really getting into the deep breathing so that you can help calm yourself down. Taking a break. We have great discussions about what does taking a break look like and the importance of taking a break off of technology. So children can hear what their peers do to take a break, and then they share sometimes what their parents like to do to take a break. Water, hydrating is really important, but the simple act of pausing and focusing on taking a drink of water can be a very calming sensation. And then we spend a lot of time talking about positive self-talk. This is one that we discuss from 3 years old all the way up to adulthood, and how working on the cycle of how you speak to yourself is really important and can help you in times of stress. So as we're teaching parents about their tools and their tool belt, we are also teaching our students, our children, about the tools that they can have in their tool belts. And so the more we can overlap with those, we hope that we will wrap them in a bubble of self-regulation. And then, of course, reading a book. Because we know that that distracting our brains from what may be causing us some stress is a good way to help us calm down and refocus on what we're doing. This one always makes children laugh. Some kids really love the idea of being tickled. It really helps them feel calm. They also like tickling their parents or someone close to them when permission is given, and the kids have wonderful stories about how for some of them, this is a really great tool to have in their tool belt. And other children say, absolutely no way, I don't like being tickled. And so it helps us start the conversation about consent and that you need to give someone consent in order to touch you. So it's a really good way to start that conversation. And then our last one is a hug, which unfortunately for us, because we're on Zoom, and when we hopefully get back to campus with social distancing, that won't really be a possibility. But we know at home that a hug can be a really powerful tool for your children when they need that reassurance and time to get back into the green zone. So that's just an overview of some of the strategies that we help teach your children so that they can put those in their toolkit to pull out when they're not in the green zone. One that Danny mentioned last week, and he referred to the one from Kelso's Choices, which is a tool that we use at school, is the wheel of choice. And there's a couple of different models out there. This one comes from Positive Discipline, which is a style of parenting written by Jay Nelson and Lynn Lott, and it's been around for quite a while now. They have different tools that you can use in your parenting toolbox. This one is called Anger Wheel of Choice. And it goes along with the zones of regulation, which is that all feelings are okay. It's what we do with them that really matters. And so it's about helping your child decide what are the things that help them when they're angry to calm down and get back into the green zone. And so she has some here that she recommends for an anger wheel of choice. As a parenting strategy, we would like to introduce the idea that you could create this with your child and create one for yourself and do this as an activity together so that you can then compare and show your children that what works for you may not work for them, and what works for them may not work for you, and that that's okay. It's about individualizing. How do we get ourselves back to the green zone so that we can be ready to learn and be ready to be a part of our family community and those different things. There's a wonderful behavior therapist out there, and she has a website called Plant, Love, Grow, and she has a lot of free resources for parents and teachers, which is where I pulled this blank wheel of choice from, and I will be able to link it into our resources in the Tin Took this week. And then this can be a good thing to have up on the refrigerator or even in their workstation during distance learning, so that as you're helping your children to regulate, you can look at the choices that they have identified as being really helpful for them. Last week, Danny talked about conflict resolution, and that may be at home, and we talked specifically about school. Sometimes having a template to help guide you through those conversations can be really helpful, because then it's less about talking to each other and more about a third point that can help you with that. And so again, this is from Plant, Love, Grow, and she has these different templates. There's about 3 or 4 of them, and this is one that I pulled that matched a little bit with what Danny was talking about last week, which is being able to identify how you're feeling, talk about how you express that, and then she's got the caveat there, without being mean, angry, or violent. So that's helping children recognize that all feelings are okay. It's how do we express those, giving them the language. And then what do I want to do to end this conflict? And this is a really great section for you to be able to talk to your children about what are those options for ending the disagreement or ending the conflict. And then finally, looking at, do I need to apologize? Because we know that sometimes children and adults both need to fashion an apology to the person that they were in conflict with. And this also gives you a chance to role model and then practice how to give that apology to the person that they feel that they've wronged. So that's just another tool that we have this morning. Before we get to our weekly famous Calvin and Hobbes check-in, are there any questions about the poll, about the breathing, or about any of the tools or strategies we've talked about today before we move on?
Sorry, Chris, this is Carrie. I don't have a way to chat. Can I just quickly ask out loud? Okay, thanks. So that wheel, the anger wheel, sorry, I have the World Series on in the background, it's loud. So the anger wheel of choices are there, it's a great, I would love to have it in some of those moments. Yes, this one. I can't quite read on my tiny screen what these things are, but is there like a bank of suggested options with that? Or would you just encourage that we work on this independently? To brainstorm what? Go ahead.
No, sorry for interrupting. Yes, there are plenty of, and when I send this out, you'll get a bigger version of it so you can look through it. And then
Okay.
we'll also pass on some other suggestions that you can use. So it's a good basis to start from, looking at it with your child and saying, well, here's a strategy, punch a pillow. Gosh, that doesn't sound like it would work for me. Do you think that would work for you? Okay, let's give it a go. Let's go to the living room and we're both going to punch a pillow and see if that helps us feel better. So yeah, it can be really good to start from a bank and just slowly work through those things together. And again, your children, especially, I think you have children of 2 different ages in your home, having them do it together, they might be able to say, oh, that would work for me, but not for me, and kind of do it as a family. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be great. Thank you so much.
Miss Molly. Oh, thanks, Marie. Miss Molly, Ruby Finds a Worry by Percival. It was great to discuss with kids about their worries. Absolutely. This is something that Danny and I and Josh and Natasha, that our team talks about a lot. We often share books with each other. And the library has great LibGuides for SEL books, which is what this would fall under, which is social emotional learning. So we're happy to share a link to those LibGuides and pass on other book recommendations, much like Miss Molly has here. If parents send us those, and then we have our own repertoire as well, we can definitely share books that address different things like worries or, you know, feeling angry and different ways that you can attack that through the use of books. So thanks for that, Marie. All right, Danny. Calvin.
All right, I love Calvin and Hobbes, so I'm just going to give everyone a quick second to read through it. Talking about strategies and toolboxes for parents, I feel like oftentimes that's how I feel when my baby's crying. I'm like, did we do this? Did we do that? Did we do this? And I feel like the more stuff I have and the more ammunition I have, I feel a little bit more comfortable. And sometimes, I know my baby can't do it yet, but sometimes even when I work with kids, it's like, well, we should start with a deep breath. And that's how we did it too. And then this kind of just covers a lot of different things in this one little strip. So think about breathing, but also think about how you can increase your toolbox, because the things that Chris has given out, I mean, I'm just listening and going, oh, I've used that, I've used that, I've used that, I used that. And so they're just an amazing asset to you as you can find different ways to build connections with your children.
All right, so this week for your homework, we would encourage you to create your own wheel of choice and compare it with what your children choose, and then encourage them to help remind you when you might need to use a strategy, because it's a good opportunity to model the use of strategies in real life with your child, and then put up those wheels where they're visible and use them. Again, model, model, model. The resources that are linked in or will be linked in is the positive discipline article on the anger wheel of choice. So Carrie, there'll be some suggestions in there, and then we'll send along another resource as well. There's a great new blog post from the Zones of Regulation creator, Leah Coopers, about some different ways to use that, and there's an excellent video on how to use it at home. And then there's the New York Times article about breathing from the gift that we had at the start of our session. Thank you for your